All right, welcome. Today we're diving into the third landmark of faith, all about the Son. But we're going to approach this a little differently. Think of it less like a list of doctrines and more like a complete theological biography, a story that stretches from eternity all the way into the future. Let's jump in.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to follow a really clear timeline. We'll start with the Son's identity before he ever came to Earth. Then we'll get to that pivotal moment when he enters human history. From there, we'll look at what he did here, the climax of that mission, and finally, we'll look ahead to the future restoration that this whole story is building toward.
Okay, so first things first, the eternal Son. To really get a handle on this story, we have to start at the very beginning. And I mean, before any beginning we can imagine, we have to understand who he was before his time on Earth.
And this right here is the absolute core of it. The starting point for this entire landmark is that he is eternal. This isn't something he became. The text presents it as his fundamental nature, something that existed before creation itself. It's who he is.
So what does this eternal identity actually do? Well, it's expressed through four huge functions. First, he's the creator, the agent behind everything that exists. Second, he's the revealer, the one who makes God's character understandable to us. Third, he is the designated accomplisher of salvation. And finally, he is the ultimate judge. These roles together establish this cosmic authority that's in place long before his human life even begins.
And that brings us to the second major part of this biography, the moment the eternal enters our world, our time. This is what's known as the doctrine of the incarnation.
Now, that word incarnate, it's a big one. So let's be clear. It's the specific theological term for this mind-blowing event, God, the eternal Son, becoming flesh, taking on a human body and a human nature in the person we know as Jesus Christ. And this is where we get to the central mystery of it all. According to this landmark, he didn't stop being God to become human. He was both 100% at the same time. On one side, he is truly God, the eternal creator. But on the other, he becomes truly human. He's born, he lives a human life, he even experiences temptation. He keeps his divine nature while fully stepping into the human condition.
So, he's here. He's on Earth. But now what? What was he actually here to do? Well, that brings us to his earthly mission, a life that was absolutely defined by purpose.
You can see his mission unfolding in these key stages. First, he exemplified righteousness. He lived a perfect life, even when faced with temptation. Then he manifested divine power through miracles, which were like tangible proof of who he was. And all of that together culminated in him being attested as the Messiah.
And let's be clear what that word Messiah means in this context. It's not just a title. It refers to a very specific role. The promised, divinely confirmed representative sent from God to see a divine plan through to the end. It's the fulfillment of a promise that was centuries in the making. Okay, all of this, the perfect life, the miracles, the teaching, it's all been building to this moment. We've arrived at the climax of the mission, these huge events that define sacrifice and ultimately victory. Which of course begs the question, after everything he did, what was the end game? What was this all really for? What was the ultimate purpose? And the answer, according to the text, is found right here in his death on the cross. And there are two words here that are absolutely critical. It was voluntary, and it was done for our sins and in our place. This is presented as the very center, the heart of his entire mission.
But that is not where the story ends, not by a long shot. After the sacrifice comes the victory. The text is plain and simple. He was raised from the dead. This is the ultimate proof of his identity and the final triumph over death itself.
Now that victory isn't just a period at the end of a sentence, it's a launch pad for the future. So in our last section, let's look at how the mission actually continues, moving toward what's called a future restoration. So what happens after the resurrection? Well, this path unfolds in three key parts. First, he ascended back to heaven. But his work didn't stop. He now ministers on our behalf. And all of this points toward a huge future promise, that he will come again in glory to bring about the final deliverance of his people. So you see, this whole theological biography, from an eternal creator to a future king, it doesn't just end with a closed book. It concludes with this incredible open-ended promise of a restoration of all things. And that leaves us with the ultimate question this landmark puts forward. What does it truly mean when everything, finally, is made new?